So yeah. So I go to the slide number, I think. So we were discussing about classical way how to define the first order correlation function, and also how this correlation function related to visibility, G1 particularly. And then we introduced the another type of interferometer that is called Mach-Zehnder interferometer. And there actually the advantage is that you can access both the ports. The one of the port will be maxima, another port will be minima simultaneously if you measure. If you measure simultaneously, one port will be maxima, another port will be minimum. Okay. So we also discussed that if there is only one photon coming in through this beam splitter, as long as you don't measure, you have to consider that this both a photon present in both the path, simultaneously present in both the paths. But whenever you are coming here and again interfering in this beam splitter, then the situation will be such that it's like before classically, that whatever classically we consider one, if one detector sees bright, another detector will see dark depending on the path length. Here also you will see that photon either in one detector or another detector. If it is detected here, it will be missing there. So that means before measurement, we have to show that we cannot really consider, cannot say that which path actually the photon is flowing, which path photon following. It simultaneously both the paths are to be considered. So in that light, we just try to think, we ask ourselves a good question here, that a single photon comes and you have a beam splitter. Let us forget about the polarization, whatever the polarization, classical polarization is there. It's a perpendicular polarization or plane polarization or whatever polarization. You just forget for the moment. You can consider a beam splitter and single photon is coming. Whatever polarization comes, that is there. Okay. Now, obviously, we cannot just say which path it is going. That is what we discussed, right? But let us try to come back to that Michelson interferometer once again. What happens for a single photon case when it is coming from the left, and it is a beam splitter. So in the beam splitter, you said that the photon simultaneously present in both the arms. So now what you do, you have a mirror here, M1, and total phase, round trip phase, maybe you are considering phi 1. Classically, we know that phase is phi 1. If electromagnetic wave goes there and hits the mirror and comes back, that phase is phi 1. And here also, we consider that whatever going and coming back, total phase is phi 2. Okay. So basically, this phase phi 1, phi 2, you can actually calculate from your classical point of view. What is the path length and so on, velocity, etc. You can consider. And now you say that if you have photon exist in both the arms, what would be the outcome here in this port here? Suppose it return back, it is going there and going here and comes back. What you will get? You will get again this, I think here we have written cos square phi 1 by plus phi 2. That means basically phi 1 minus phi 2 it should be. If total phase, it should be phi 1 minus phi 2. I think that's a type of error you should consider. Total phase will be phase difference, you have to consider path length difference, right? So in that case, classically we know that this would be, if it is some light is coming, and then the light intensity here should be proportional to cos square phi. Is that correct? Cos square or sin square? Anyone can tell? Shauvik? Shauvik, can you?
Yes.
It is
Yes, sir.
cos
Yes,
square,
sir.
or it should be sin square?
It's cos square, I think.
Why not sin square? So here, if you see Michelson interferometer, output coming cos square, right? Yeah. It's output here cos square, right? So if you just evaluate this one, cos square times whatever the path length difference, right? Phase difference. So it should be cos square.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So now again we discussed that when some path length difference, if it is here, such that this value becomes 0, then we know that light goes into return path, and there will be maximum return path. Is that correct? So when it is minimum, there will be maximum. So if you try same way, if you just try to get what is the superposition in the reflection path, then the result will be sin square. If you are just observing here, just somehow you have some instrument, so that reflected beam, when coming back, you can actually separate them and measure that, and there it will be actually, it will come out as a sin square, because some pi by 2 difference will be there, and sin square. That's why you can get cos square, sin square are complementary. You know, cos square plus sin square equal to 1. So if you are getting cos square here, that will be actually sin square. Same phase function. So sin will be here and cos will be here. So that should be, for this particular situation, whatever we have calculated here, for example, if you have a delta here, you are putting, say, for example, plus pi by 2. So then it is a sin square. It will come as a sin square. That means the same pi by 2 delta, then it will be cos square. So it is just alternately, it goes back and forth. Okay, so here cos square we have written, right? And we will see here as well, if it is a single photon is coming, then what is this cos square phi? If cos square phi, if it is 1 cos square phi, that means it can be 1, it can be less than 1. What does it mean? Anyone can answer? Classically, we know that this cos square. So can we just interpret this cos square if it is a single photon is coming? What would be the interpretation of cos square? Because we know that normally, whenever we are talking about quantum photonics, that is fine, how they are presented in an abstract way, everything we explain. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we measure them, we have to measure them, and we have to relate with the classical objects, like photodetector or any instrument. Classical objects, classical device, only thing we can handle, right? We don't have anything, something like that quantum measurement system, particularly. We can just, we say quantum measurement system, but everything macroscopically it is visualized. So here also the classical way, we know that cos square will be coming back here. So this cos square for a single photon, what we say? Single photon coming, single photon of cos square. We cannot say that less than 1 of photon. What is this cos square then? I will be asking someone.
Sir,
Sasank, tell. Go ahead. Go ahead, Sasank.
yeah, it's the probability that the photon will go through that path of the
Yeah.
beam, the interferometer.
Yes, I think that is what we have to interpret, that this same cos square we should not see something like that classically, how much fraction of light it will be coming. We cannot say that how much fraction of photon will be coming, but because of the fraction, photon cannot be fractured, right? So it cannot be it cannot be broken. So you cannot say that cos square of a photon, one photon. So instead, what we can say that if we just represent this one as the probability of finding a photon in this path, it's cos square delta phi. Same phase difference will be there. So in that case, if the probability of finding a photon in this path is cos square phase difference, that means probability of reflected photon will be sin square delta phi. So this path probability of reflection will be sin square and transmission will be. So that means if I just keep on measuring many times, then suppose 100 photons, identical photons are hitting here, identical photon I said, and instrument condition is maintained, right? Each of them, if I try to measure, then if I find here some photon number will be, whatever value will be there, here maybe 10, here will be then 90. So cos square sin square term has to be, that will be followed like that. Okay, so the output will be classically like this, and photon probability we can just predict it like this. So this is something photon probability. And quantum mechanically, how to interpret that? We just mentioned that the photon after hitting beam splitter, it is a superposition of two abstract waves, complex wave. Superposition of two abstract, just abstract way you have to think, because we don't know what is there. So that is where quantum mechanical things comes into picture. So we just consider a Kate A, we can consider this is one basis vector and another basis vector is B, and their superposition actually exists. And superposition together we'll be calling that Kate psi. And we give them their superposition weightage alpha and beta. And that if it is, this beam splitter is a lossless thing, nothing is being lost here, ideal case, then we can consider this alpha square. Probability of finding here is alpha square. That means if it is cos, that's cos square, and then it is B, this is sin square. Cos square plus sin square should be 1. That is how we can say that. Beam splitter, we are just splitting here, and we can get there. So here just one consideration is that before measurement, the photon can be considered like a wave. That wave, that is something abstract wave A and B. But once it is hit, somehow it is measured, then you measure that thing, then immediately you can say that, okay, photon took this path. One particular path, it is this path or this path it took. Okay, so you can think of that. Just paradoxically, you can think. Suppose one photon goes here and then hitting here, and beam splitter itself sending photon either this path or this path. Okay, originally. Don't need to consider that two paths simultaneously it is following. You just assume that suppose inherently this photon is coming, previously decided that deciding factor which we don't know actually. That deciding factor actually telling that you should take this path. If beam splitter comes in your way, you should take this path. That is somehow inherently it was there within the photon property. It is coming there. So it is going there, and when it's reflect back, right, from the mirror, it is 100% reflection, right? And if it is coming back here, and again, it is decided such that it is coming like this. It's passing here. It is not going in this direction. Okay, inherently it is decided. Or we can say that it is going in this direction and again coming back and deflecting back this direction. So whatever originally it is there, when photon source is there, that photon source, when photon emitting, that emitted photon, that giving entire property, so that it will take either this path or this path. Okay, so in that case, what is the problem? Ultimately, we are measuring here. Ultimately, I am getting final things. What is happening? I am getting here that photon. right? We can consider this way and this way. And then if it is inherent property is there, it is coming like this way. What would be the problem in that consideration? Can anyone just think of this? If you just assume like,
The uncertainty.
what uncertainty?
So if it is fixed,
Huh.
then there is.
No,
Yeah,
I'm saying
I mean-
it is somewhere it is decided already from the source. Either it will go this path or this path, not like simultaneously this side will be there. Okay, either this path or this path. So when it is coming back here, then it can again go either this path that is also inherently there or this path. Inherent property will say that. So that means I can say that this photon is going this way, and after return, if this way it is going, it will come back also same way. If it is this going this way, it will come back like this way, for example. And that type of deciding factor is originally is there. If we assume that way, and that way if we develop our maths, what would be the problem? But people rather go this type of description. Anyone can just think or
Wouldn't get
thought.
an interference pattern, like the probabilities would just get added in that case.
Yeah, probability would get added, and I think that if you develop maths like that for a, whenever one photon is hitting, and if you just somehow give some kind of inherent property, if we try to find that inherent property coming from the source, and then we predict, then it's also fine, I think. I have to develop a different way. Only thing is that I need to know what is the source of this thing, how it decides whether it will go this path or this path.
Sir, I didn't understand exactly what the assumption is. So you're saying that the source, we're assuming in our math that the source is deciding which paths the photon will take, is it? Okay, and
So-
we're saying that
But probably we
if-
don't know that thing. Probably we don't know that thing. The source actually has some kind of, when it is generating, that time inherently some property is already given to it. When in its path in beam splitter comes, it will say whether it will reflect from the front surface or it will transmit throughout. So that property is deciding. And if we find that property, what is the source of that property, then everything can be explained. It's not it. I think why we are going in this way, why we need to go in this description.
because yeah, I mean there's something in quantum mechanics called like local variables that you cannot include
right.
in the theory.
So local variable, that is called hidden variable. If you just consider
Hidden variable, right.
hidden variable or localism, so called. If you just consider, what is the problem? You know that is
I think it comes into it comes into trouble when you try to consider entanglement and things like that.
Yeah, but I am not going to entanglement here right now. Just a path I am considering, this path or this path. So actually, you know that Einstein's argument was like that only. In 1935, Einstein, EPR, Einstein, Podolsky, and what is that? EPR, Rosen. So they argued that we actually some variable, if you consider, probably you can explain instead of considering this type of uncertainty that both paths it will take, because photon that time it was considered like a quantum particle or something like that. So in that case, we'll just show that I think later on, and that time when he argued in 1935, and that argument no one could explain, no one could challenge. But people considering this probability, etc. They are just psi square, probability density, all those type of thing. Lot of practical applications are going on. But that paradox, that hidden variable concept was somehow long time. I think it was perceived that may be true, that hidden variable is there. We don't know. Then there is a Bale, I think Camp. I think what is his full form? E.T. Bale, I think. Yeah, he was a famous physicist. He was working in a project. I think this CERN project. He was associated with that, and he was a famous mathematician. So he showed that if you just consider that, we'll discuss later also. If we just consider this thing, some hidden variable is there, and if you try to measure, okay, then I think the experimental there will be certain kind of inequality will be there. And that inequality will be satisfied if there is a hidden variable. If that inequality not satisfying, that means hidden variable thing, no way hidden variable will be explaining the observation. Theoretically, he has shown. And later on, it was actually many scientists tried to show experimentally, particularly famous experiment by Alan Aspects from France. He showed that actually that Bale's inequality actually breaks for single photon detection actually. So once that is failed, that hidden variable failed experimentally, it has been shown, concept failed, then I think it was no obstacle to consider this type of wave functions, that photon can take either path simultaneously. That was considered. So it is experimentally proven. So we can actually believe that we can assume that this is actually somewhat, I think so far no one could challenge so far. We can say that okay, simultaneous presence is there. But what happens? Suppose if you are measuring at one point somewhere in this beam splitter you are considering, if you are measuring here, so if you have a photo detector here, somehow this photo detector internal dynamics such that it somehow influence both the path. Somehow it disturb the state. What is the photon state coming in this path and this path, so that it somehow detects the entire energy here of the photon here. So once it is detected here of the combined system, then it will be obviously at that particular moment it will be disappearing completely here, this thing. So that is called actually wave function collapse. So here actually you are detecting, that means that once it is detected, that particular moment your entire wave function is here, entire photon is here, and that time it is not there. But it can happen that your photo detector somehow is somehow hitting here, somehow it is triggering here. So that means photon is here and here is absent. So in this way, this measurement actually, again, you can define by this type of probability, this type of weightage of each of this superposition alpha fraction and beta fraction, such that this is the thing. So ultimately, it depends on the photo detector. Okay, how you are measuring system. So here we come back to something again. As I said, that you have to go back and forth, the classical to quantum photonics, to somehow visualize things. Otherwise, normally, if you are just completely abstract way quantum mechanics, you are discussing quantum photonics. That's a kind of maths only. That's the thing. So, so I think you know this thing. So any monochromatic electromagnetic wave, right, associated electric field, magnetic field, you can explain here in the real term. I'm not using here complex thing. You can use that complex form, e to the power I, so on, so. But here I just consider this one: monochromatic frequency and omega and amplitude assoCiated field, and k is the wave vector propagating along x direction. It's a positive x direction. That's why minus. And certain phase also you include. And if it is free space, we can consider magnetic field is like this and kx. And only thing is that if it is propagating in x direction, electric field will be in the say y direction, then magnetic field will be in the z direction. Okay, so at any instant of time, at any position x, that is the fixed thing, and they will be in phase if it is a free space. So that much we know from the earlier discussion and also our electromagnetic theory point of view. And you try to find out the time average flow of power. How we can get? We have E, we have H, E cross H. One is along y direction and another is along z direction. E cross H 90 degree. Obviously, sine 90 is 1. So E naught, H naught, you have cos square times this one. And since it is a time average, we are just integrating over time, and integrating over long time. It need not be time period, maybe sufficient long time, and then we divide that time. Then what you get, that is actually the Poynting vector, means energy flow per unit time per unit area. So if you multiply this area, cross-sectional area of a beam of electromagnetic wave propagating, so then you get the power. You get that power, you can calculate that H naught equal to again E naught by eta naught, right? That Maxwell's equation gives us. So basically A times eta naught square by 2 eta. So that means this one is the intensity. So this is the intensity, means energy flow per unit area, right? Per unit area is this one, energy flow per second per unit area you are considering. And then if you multiply A, that will make total power. So this is intensity, this is power. Now, again, we say that a single photon, how it is detected in the photo detector. So we can say that the photon flux means total number in the beam per second, how many photons are crossing in the beam. Area is known. Okay, so photon flux intensity multiplied by the area total power, and we have already discussed earlier. Mathematically, we can just write down the power divided by energy of a photon. If quantum, that means quantum particle like energy like situation is there, then we can write. Now the number of photon counts at the detector with a quantum efficiency eta. So we have a quantum photo detector that when it is counting, it will have a quantum efficiency. Can you explain what is quantum efficiency? Can anyone, what you know by quantum efficiency? I can ask someone. Neil Asin.
Sir, I'm not sure about quantum efficiencies, but I think it means that how many what's the efficiency of detection? I think like out of 100%, is it able to detect 80% or 60%?
Yes. So it means that if your 100 photons are coming, maybe 70 photons, it can somehow register as a count. That is a limitation of the detector. So normally, you know, in a photo detector, what happens, how it is detected conventionally. Photon comes, and then you have it's like a semiconductor diode typically. Then electron hole pair will be generated, and that electron hole pair you can give as a whatever current, right? You can bias and you can get a current. So if 100 photons comes and 100 electron hole pair generates, then it is called quantum efficiency of 100. If it is 100 coming but 70 electron hole pair generated, then quantum efficiency is 70%. And out of 100, 70. After generation also, what happens that all the electron hole pair will not contribute to current. Some of this electron hole will be lost in the path. So those things, it will add more overall efficiency. But in principle, quantum efficiency means how many electron, whether 100% electron hole pair is generating, or every photon is contributing to electron hole pair generation or not. So that is actually quantum efficiency, it is called. And once it is generated, suppose it registers the electron hole pair generation, it counts that. After that, it is 100% surety is there in their measurement. So we can say that therefore the number of photon counts at the detector at a time duration t naught. So this is the flux what I will be doing, that flux known and quantum efficiency I know, that eta and eta phi and t naught time, because that is per unit time. Now I am registering for t naught length of time, right? So we can write this one. So this eta I have not considered earlier in our calculation of that how many photons will be there for a certain beam length. So eta pt naught by h cut omega. So I think you have seen this this thing we have discussed earlier. For example, it is 1 nanowatt power is there. How many photons will be there? But this photon counts, whenever we are counting, we have to see what is the quantum efficiency also there. That quantum efficiency part you have to consider also. So we say there the average count rate at the photodetector is given by. So now you see, this is your for time t naught, this many, right? So because of the quantum existence of quantum efficiency and source property, everything eta is there. So in that case, on an average, whatever the count you supposed to get per unit time, that means whatever n t naught is there, you just divide it by t naught. That means per second, whatever things you will be getting. Okay. Now for any photodetector, I am just using time t naught is there. You know, photodetector has also other limitation. Limitation means electron hole pair, if one photon coming, electron hole pair will be generating and immediately another photon coming, for example. So that particular photon may not register electron hole pair. Even if it is generating, your system, measurement system may not be able to look because register, because it has some kind of any photodetector will have some specific term called date time. That is actually called date time. That it means the minimum time interval required to register successive events. Suppose I am just counting one photon and then another photon, if it is coming very fast within a short interval of time, but that resolution of time, that small time interval cannot be actually resolved by your measurement system or photodetector. That is called date time. Minimum time is required. Typically a good, whenever you are measuring, just registering a very low photon number, 1 photon or 2 photon, that time those photon photodetectors, they have a date time in the order of about 1 microsecond. Sometimes this is actually limitation. People are trying to improve that, but for the moment, if you just consider, okay, it is second is written, it should be microsecond. 1 microsecond for a given date time of 1 microsecond. What is the maximum limit it can register? That is the, I'm saying that ratings of the photodetector, I would say. If it is 1 microsecond is date time, so maximum photon count it can actually register is, you know, 1 microsecond, there will be 1. So in 1 second, how many? 10 to the power 6. So that means per second it can actually detect 1 million photons. 10 to the power 6. That is because of the limitations. If it is more than this many number of photons are coming, you cannot really count. So I'm just talking about how ultimately quantum state you have to consider, and single photon you have to identify, detect. So in that case, certain limitations are there in the photodetector side. Okay, so here in this example, 10 to the power 6. That means 1 million photon per second can be registered. It can be, some photodetector can give more, some can be lower. So this is one example we are considering. Okay, so that means if I want to really resolve one photon, in that case, we have to, what we have to do? This R max is 10 to the power 6. Then from this expression, what all we have to do? Eta is fixed, for example, right? Eta means this many number of photons comes, and that is the there. So R max, that actually decides the R max. maybe whatever the limitations is here, that actually decide the Rmax. So Rmax is 10 to the power 6, for example, for a given eta, h cut omega. So if I want to resolve date, time, everything, that means my power has to be as small as possible. Okay, because I have a given eta, h cut omega is given, and I cannot exceed 10 to the power 6. Even if I am giving more power, but I will not be able to count because of the limitation of our detector. So P has to be as small as possible, so that actually individually you can actually measure the count the photons. So that is the problem actually. If you are reducing photon power to 1 nanowatt, for example, we have shown earlier. So we see that within this, in average 8 things will be there. And average number of photons you can calculate also in this way. Suppose S is the length and this is the flux. Flux means we have actually defined here flux of the total power divided by h cut omega. That is actually we discussed, evaluated earlier, and that is the within the beam of entire beam of length S. Flux we know, flux multiply, then we can get total number of photon, average number of photons per unit. What do you call that? Yeah. Average number of photons reaching to the photodetector per second. So S by C we are just writing as a tau S. That means a flight time of that one, h cut omega. So that is how we calculated for this example. It was 8 nanosecond. Now we said that this average 8 is there, and then we have shown that Poissonian distribution will be their laser characteristics whenever laser is emitting. So that we would like to derive a bit, because we'll derive in a layman way, not starting from the very basics, okay, to get some idea for how the photon statistics come and what is the, how actually when we are detecting that actually include also the detector limitations as well. So whenever your source is coming, that is one thing, it has certain kind of distribution. Photons may be coming regularly, but your photodetector also will have a limitation. Response time, eta efficiency, everything will be there. And that everything, when we say laser source to detection, if I try to detect, then it will be something, somehow it will be coming like a certain distribution. That will be actually describing maybe tomorrow last class before quiz. With all the above layman viewpoints, we now try to find the probability Pn to finding n photons within a beam length S containing n subsegment of for n capital N. So you are just segmenting the length into n, and we are that n can be infinitive. That means your subsegment will be as small as possible, so that you can consider that within that small segment maybe some photon probability is there. We'll be considering that that out of this n segment, maybe some fraction of segments photons will be there, some fraction of segments photons will be completely absent. So considering that there is a probability distribution actually exists, we'll just directly follow that probability distribution to reach to a photon statistics, so-called Poissonian statistics. And then following that, we'll be just discussing how this Poissonian statistics can be beaten by some kind of engineering, photonics engineering. Okay, I stop here today. So tomorrow will be the last class before quiz 2. If you have any question, you can just clarify over WhatsApp. But day after tomorrow, 10 o'clock, we will have our exams.
Sir, how long will the paper be for?
Meaning?
Like, is it 10 to 11, or like how long is the paper for?
Yeah, that is what we will be telling you, depending on the question paper. Okay, but I suggest that you keep reserve for at least 2 hours,